So on today's video, guys, we're gonna be talking about identifying red flags when looking at independent performance shops. Please keep in mind, we're not talking about dealerships. We're not talking about massive nationwide chains. Want to get into more of the specific performance niche category here for your auto shops. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so first things first, one of the biggest red flags you'll find a lot of times is when you go into a shop, when you call, if you walk in there, you check the front desk, getting somebody on the phone, and it's like literally it's an independent location and they have a different guy up front every single time. This is a sign of high turnover, turning and burning employees, turning and burning technicians, service advisors. There's obviously going to be a lot of turnover in the automotive industry as a whole, but when you're talking about like an automotive shop on a smaller scale, when it's just a consistent pattern of like the same ownership, and then they have like a different advisor, like every 4 months, every 6 months, something like that, just absolutely just turning and burning people, it's gonna be a red flag, man. Same thing goes with technicians. It's like if you see a specific shop, they're constantly posting a now hiring ad, trying to find technicians, urgently hiring, looking for dedicated team players to join our team, right? If a shop has a small, efficient team of guys, they're getting their job done, they're being taken care of, no money problems, right? You're not going to be constantly seeing those listings as far as trying to bring new people on board. So again, high turnover, it's always going to be a red flag with shops. Next on the list, guys, talking about too many locations. Please keep in mind, we're not talking about like your dealerships. We're not talking about massive nationwide chains like a Firestone or something like that. I'm talking about like your independent shop pops up and tries to produce too many redundant locations. Oftentimes, where you have more quantity, you're going to have to sacrifice in terms of quality. If you're a one owner type of guy, you're trying to build that empire, I get it. You want to have that big name, you want that bigger footprint, capitalize on other markets. That's totally fine. And you know what, man? If you can do it, you can execute it, you've got a good team, good people, you're making money, delivering a high standard of service, by all means, that's cool. Great job. But a lot of times in reality, it's the exact opposite. You could have 3 different locations. You call one location, same vehicle, same inquiry, looking for the same services, upgrades, whatever, and you get a totally different price at 3 different locations, right? That's just one of many examples why trying to replicate, duplicate with too many locations is really not the right way to go about it. Specifically in the category of like high-end performance related stuff, look, if you're like an actual skilled tuner, engine builder, fabricator, right? You want to have as much quality control as possible. And in order to do that, you're going to have your one centralized location. So if you're popping up, this state, that state, going up north, going south, you're trying to go for like that cookie cutter approach as far as just popping up more shops. Maybe it's one thing if you're just doing like wheels and lowering springs, like some really basic stuff. I get that. But if you're talking about actual like serious performance, it's just not happening. I'm just going to tell you, it doesn't really work that way. It's always going to be a compromise. If you're trying to really like reach the pinnacle of quality, performance, consistency, you're not doing that, man. You're not doing that having yourself spread so thin as an individual business owner across 10 different locations. Let's just call it what it is. Moving on from there, we're going to talk about an excess of suspiciously overly positive reviews. There's really no business in existence that isn't going to have at least some negative review. It's just the human nature of there's always going to be some people that you just can't make happy, right? So it's obviously a challenge when dealing with anything in that service related industry. You can do everything right, and sometimes the customer's just going to do what they do. They're not going to always be happy. They're not always going to be appreciative, and sometimes they're always going to have something negative to say. It's just an unfortunate fact of life. So if you're going through looking at like, dozens and dozens and hundreds or maybe thousands of reviews, and it's just literally line by line by line, every single review, 5-star perfect, 5-star perfect, especially when it doesn't sound very personalized. Like, you can usually tell a review is legit if a person kind of adds more specific context. Hey, I brought my, 2015 Mustang for exhaust, springs, and a tune, wheels, blah, blah, blah. Worked with a guy named Gary, had it in for this. I was super happy with the results, right? If you're not seeing a personalized review talking about something in more detail, and you're just seeing constantly great service, highly recommend, A+, 5 all day, that kind of stuff, and it's just consistently like 5-star after 5-star after 5-star. If you don't see like a mix in there, maybe a 3-star here, maybe a 4-star, maybe that one guy had to throw a fit, had a 1-star, you get the point. You just never know if they're real people. Could be bots, could be their cousin's, uncle's, nephew's stepdaughter, and they're just kind of spamming these like little cookie cutter fake reviews. So just something else to bear in mind when looking at shops. Next red flag on the list, and that's gonna be when you take a look at a shop and they continuously suffer with an extensive backlog of hopeless rescue project vehicles. If you go in there, you take a look, you see what they've got parked out front, parked out back, and it's like, dude, that same broken car is still sitting here, right? And I'm not talking about just maybe one or two. I'm talking about like, you literally have, 10, 15, 20, 30 or more of the same continuous broken rescue projects. You're not seeing any progress. You're starting to find that when you call, you make an inquiry, hey, can I get an appointment for this, this, and this? Hey man, we're 4 weeks out, 8 weeks out, 10 weeks out, 12 months out on getting like a build in. And it's just like they're continuously falling behind. They're not getting things in and out. They're not turning hours, right? There's a massive bottleneck in the workflow. A lot of times this can be a sign of staffing issues, right? Maybe there's a turnover. They don't have enough guys turning wrenches. There can be some cash flow problems within the business. All these kind of things can definitely contribute to that extensive backlog of rescue projects, which I've done a separate video just about that. If you want to check that out, I'll put a link up here somewhere. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, another red flag is when a shop appears to be very desperate. They're really showing a lot of signs of struggle, that they really don't have any work. In my opinion, this is going to be another red flag, because a shop that is proficient, successful, they've really formulated their ingredients as far as delivering whatever it is they specialize in, they're going to be busy, right? They're going to be busy. They're going to have a pretty full plate. So they're not going to be posting in groups in desperation, hey guys, for this month, we're going to slide another 5% off lowering springs, stuff like that. You always got to be mindful of. It can obviously be very challenging to balance like that happy medium as far as too much work, not enough work. So these are all just various things that you got to keep in mind if you're looking at it more so from a business perspective. The next red flag I want to talk about is when you have independent performance shops and they basically try to indirectly take credit for high performance builds that they did not actually build themselves. For example, you might have a shop that'll do a post where they say something like, we took this 800 wheel, blah, 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 to the next level. And it's like, yeah, you did a alignment on it and an oil change and maybe some brakes. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's kind of this like, look at this fancy shiny object, but it's just like, dude, you didn't do the cage, you didn't do the engine, you didn't do the tuning, you didn't do the turbo kit, right? Like it was done by a totally different business. And it's just like, you're not directly taking credit for it, but it's kind of like indirectly trying to take credit for that type of build, right? So it's a lot of smoke and mirrors in my opinion. Next on the list, one of the biggest ones, I've seen this all the time, having been a customer in the automotive performance world for many, many years myself, is when you request a quote for some type of service or upgrade, and you basically just get like a single line item and then like a dollar amount, right? So basically what a lot of times they're gonna do is they try to build a quote where they're putting all the parts and labor like as a single price. So you're not seeing like, let's say the job is $1,000, right? How much of that is labor? How much of that is parts? They're basically trying to sort of sneak in their margins and kind of bundle everything together as a package. So I've always been a fan of giving people as much transparency as possible. I'm not going as far as saying like you need to put like every single part number in there and like start, calculating like fractional hours of each individual thing that's going to be removed during the installation. Maybe not that far, right? It's probably a little bit overkill, but hey, if it's $1,500, just show me, hey, it's using, 5 different parts. Here's the price of what each part is, this much labor, bam, right? Something like that. Like if I just see install lowering springs and it's just like $1,200, I don't even see the price of the springs. I don't see the price of the labor, alignment, right? Like there needs to be a specific line item for each individual service, in my opinion. I think that's really the right way to do it. So always be careful if you're shopping around quotes, you're trying to make sure that you're not gonna overspend. Be very careful if you get a quote and it's just like that basic single line item and one price point. So that's pretty much going to wrap up my list for today, guys. Be sure to share your thoughts in the comment section down below. Any red flags when looking at shops. Interesting discussion, again, speaking from the standpoint of a longtime car enthusiast as well as a former service advisor. So always like to get the conversations going in the comments below. Well, thank you guys as always. Like the video, subscribe for more. Stay tuned for more updates. Got a lot of things planned here for the RS3, and I'll be sure to see you guys in the next one. Have a great day.